Hey, welcome back. This is Sister-in-Law, Part 3, page 23. Okay, I can fix this. I get a little poke through. I don't know if you can notice it on the YouTube small screen version, but there's a little poke through on the shirt, and I can fix that instead of re-rendering this whole thing. So I will save this, and this I'll show you all. Will be a preview while waiting for the later pictures to render, but we're going to go open. Yeah, let's go ahead and open this as a layer. What I'm going to do is zoom in real close, and we're going to take the color select tool and just select a nearby color. Let's see, go to tools, paint tools, I think pencil. Yeah, there we go. And I think what I'm going to do is, let's go with a picker tool. That one, tool, paint tool. There we go. I think that will do it. So if we zoom out, then once it goes on the page, you won't notice it. It'll look fine. So let's get a layer 34. Oops, I'm still zoomed in a little too much. And okay, once more. I'm going to change the color back to black. I think that's my all black. And then we will bring you up here. Split this in the middle. So I know if you've been watching, I think with the exception of the first video, which was made before I put this on pause, but each video for this particular part after that one, you if you've been following along, you've been hearing me whine and complain about this project and how I was really planning to end this at the end of this part, cut it short, because I had originally intended this to be 4 parts. I think with the steps, with sort of all the steps in his reduction, and they were somewhat spaced out even within 1 or 2 pages. Um, it would have, it was expected to turn this into 4 parts, and I was telling myself, I'll just cut it short. And I've been like complaining that this has been draining. I hate this project. I'm gonna cut it off here, and I I think as I'm coming toward the end of this project, it's like now my mind is going to the other place where it's like, oh, I really want to take this to a 4th part. Like, I really think I can carry this to a 4th part now. I think I've got the ideas. Uh, let's see. Well, let me get this text down first. Okay, that is nice. It's pretty much think, was it 2 pages where he breaks out of 2 or 3 pages where he breaks out of Val's bedroom and sneaks back upstairs. It was that sequence, I think, inspired, is what changed my mind, is what is I think is what kind of renewed my faith in this project, and I'm not looking forward to because this project is still more sitting around waiting than actually working. But something about that sequence told me it'll be worth it. Whoops, I didn't want to layer image size. I keep doing that because I get so used to coming in here and for layer to image size. See, so now we're layered image size. So I think it's I guess the problem. Well, the problem is I just like to complain. Complaining's fun. But it's kind of the problem is I think because there's not a lot going on in the storyline, it's like, in my head, it's like, how do you transition? How do you keep things moving when there's nothing to move, so to speak? Um, and to kind of cut away for a moment because the clothes have poked through, and I'll let you know now so that you're not sitting at home thinking, like, oh my God, nudity on YouTube. I turned her breasts off so that when the poke through shows through, you won't see the nipples or the breasts or whatever. So we won't be violating YouTube's terms of service. So let me see. If I select the breast, see the breast is turned off. The two breasts are turned off. And there's an issue with Frank, and this one's not quite so easy. So I've kind of got to remember each and every time. Oops, and I turned the table off so I could get that shot. So let's put the table back on. This is kitchen table. So the thing with Frank, I get poked through on the pants, and I think it gets worse each time I take the pants off and then put them back on, take them off again. I don't know what it is, but so the poke through on the pants is bad. Um, so it's the idea is the smoothing modifier on the pants sort of takes care of it for the shot, for the render. But when I move them around, the poke through shows. So I've turned off the pelvis and the legs so that so it doesn't show up on here on YouTube or wherever it is that I've got this linked on Patreon, etc., etc. But the thing is, like, the hip bone comes up a little higher than the pants. So when I go to render this, I've got to turn the hip bone on. But let's put the smoothing modifier on first. Enable smoothing on. And then I'm going to put the hip bone on. It's actually pelvis. No. Oh, I'm on Joe. Here we go. Let's take I mean, see, pelvis bone is off. Um, so I'm going to put it on, and in case it like shows the poke through initially, I'm going to pause so I can cut this if I have to. Okay. Okay, so no naughty bits were shown, just the sides of the legs, but you kind of saw it there. Hopefully, I won't have to move Frank a lot, but I'm just going to have to kind of mess with that each time just to avoid violating any or whatever terms of services it might violate on YouTube. So I'm going to render that, and I think it's just going to be wordless. It's just going to be sort of like her carrying on across the page with just reaction shots and that sort of thing. But going back, I think the breakout scene there sort of inspired me because that's kind of what I wanted to do with this. Was a lot of comparison shots throughout the house. But it's I'm kind of one where I like the story. I get swept up in the story a little bit more. So a lot of the comparison shots don't really seem as important as they should. So I think where this one is light on the story, I'm gonna be it's gonna force me to do a lot of sort of those types of comparison shots. Have him moving about the house at different sizes as he gets like even smaller and it's harder to navigate. And he sort of plays maybe play a de facto game of hide and seek from Val. But that's what's kind of got me. Um, it's sort of the one thing is these pictures are still taking. It's hit or miss. Sometimes I get in a pattern where I can get them done in like 8 to 10 minutes, where they get done in 8 to 10 minutes maybe, and then I get in these patterns where for some reason they take 20 to 30 minutes per picture, and it just kind of runs down the time. I seem to be in this habit lately of getting about 3 pages done a day, sort of in the bat in these sort of like last six to like in the last half of the story. So I mean, if I can keep that up through part four. Oh shoot! I've got Hold on. Cancel. Problem is the outdoor image through the windows here is turned off as well. Okay. So I gotta find that. I think is a structure background, and this one is called secondary because it's primarily I wanted. It's sort of like this one in Recall. Like in my head, they've gone on long enough that I want them both done by the end of this month, by the end of April. So it's kind of where this one can go all over the place as far as production. I mean, it's like right now I'm working at about 3 pages a day. Um, it's not uncommon for this project to go slow enough, or to kind of, coupled with feeling with just having a bad day, just feeling like crap, and only getting one page done. Um, I think in the first two parts, I think what were they taking, like 2 weeks at a minimum per part. But I'm hoping if I can maintain that 3 page, then it'll be 8 days plus um, another day to assemble the book, maybe. Probably a day for covers, and then a day to assemble the book and sort of edit it. But if I can maintain that pace, then this will be done by the end of the month easily. If in my head, if it goes slower, then it'll cut it close. I think even worst case scenario, it'll still be done by the end of the month, but it'll end up like cutting it like right at the edge. And it's like I keep hinting at. I don't know if sort of the project I was hoping to do next will be ready to go, but and that's where this comes in. I've been kind of I got wireframe on here. I've been finding myself setting up the next Shrimp of the House story, Vacation, and I've sort of. I mean, it's not like it's taking a lot of work to set it up. Um, the second story, I think as I've mentioned once or twice, it's going to be another two stories in one. The first story will be with the family on vacation here in the woods, minus Alex, and the second story will be what Alex is doing at home while the family's away. So I've kind of already, well, so I got the home set kind of prepped. I think adjusted Alex's wardrobe a little bit. Um, did the same thing with Simon. Fixed up his girlfriend, sort of updated his girlfriend, uh, Kelly Brown, and then updated a character we haven't seen since Simon's Lament, Chet. Chet, whatever the hell his name is, Turner. I think. I think his last name is Turner. I think. I could be wrong. Oh, here we go. So, I kind of like with the time while we're waiting for this, I kind of wanted to show you that. Oh, it's still not responding. After getting, and it's still not responding, even though it's indicating it should be. So I set up the camp, sort of. Oh my god. Ugh. And this is because. Okay, here we go. So I think that this is one of those instances where, like, I had picked up this cabin set off the Daz store, and it's one of the rare instances where I'm going to use it out of the box, so to speak. I think it's interesting enough. I think it's decent enough. I think the problem with acquiring sets like this off the Daz store is that a lot of times they're quote unquote incomplete. Uh, if usually if somebody does a full house set, they'll usually forget a bathroom or something, or something like that. But most often, like, the vendors are only putting up individual room sets, which kind of makes them unusable for me, except for the individual props. But I think this is the one of the rare sets where I can kind of use it for this purpose. Um, it was basically, I think, before you get your hopes up and go running to the Daz store to buy it. Um, I think basic. I think the set is basically just the house and the furniture inside, except you'll recognize the airbed from Recall. see, see, Liz was thinking ahead. She got the airbed for David while he was shrinking, and she can turn around and take it camping with them and use it for the kids. But I think the cabin set on the Daz store just consists of the cabin and the furniture inside. Um, this landscaping is actually from another set. I want to say it's called Cabin in the Woods. It looks more like a derelict horror set. It's neat. I don't know if I've used that one for a movie shot on somebody's TV or not. I know I've rendered it a few times, but um, anyway, like, the landscaping is from Cabin in the Woods minus the cabin. And I will say, like, after railing against sets, that's another great set. Um, I did have to modify the ground terrain in Hexagon because it's supposed to have a hole where the cabin goes, and I had to fill in the hole. But this is basically like the Cabin in the Woods set is the ground, the hilly ground, trees, grass, um, mostly rocks, most of the rocks. And then I fit in, let's go to the campfire group, and we'll zoom in on that. And then this group is a hodgepodge of different assets. It was, you know, it's, I'm trying to think, I can't remember what it's called, but there's an old set on Daz that I took the fire pit and the chairs from, except I didn't like the rocks. So the rocks around the fire pit are actually from a different product. And then I threw a cylinder. We scan down. See, I just created a cylinder, put it in the fire pit, but raised it slightly above the ground to simulate the ash. And then the two logs come from another set, yet another set. But it's like, this is great because I can just because of this landscape from the Cabin in the Woods set sort of gives me a background that's good enough. You get the sense of depth in the forest without having to simulate an entire forest going off to infinity. And so it's like the shots outside here. If I'm in the cabin looking out, what I might do is sort of render it in layers and blur the outside so that you because I thought it looked I thought it looked better than it does, but so that it does it's not quite so obvious that it goes off. Oh shoot! And there's my picture. How come it didn't tell me? Ugh. So what we did, I zoomed out on David, went with such a wide shot to sort of give it, um, to kind of showcase how small he looks. It's sort of like in my head, I'm always tempted to zoom in real close so that you can really see you can really see the size comparison to whatever props he's next to. But I zoom out to give it sort of a sense of scale, so to speak. You sort of make him small in the picture to kind of symbolize how small he is in that world. Okay, let's save this one. Let's let's turn off the pelvis. And go. Let's focus in so I'm a little so that the little cube control there reacts or works around her instead of having to reposition this all the time. Yeah. I'm going to grab both of these and do these at once. We're going to twist. Hopefully it goes this way. Yep. Okay. Zoom in on the head. Do a close up on her. Actually, let's do an up shot. Kind of want her. No, I don't want to look exactly at the camera. If I bend her arm too close to the body, the hand goes into the skirt. But since I'm not showing a skirt, we're not going to see it. So 49. for whatever. Let's see. So I think like overall, because I think I mentioned in the previous video too that with for Shrimp of the House Vacation, that whereas Alex's story will take place in the entirety of the house, so I can deal with that set. Um, with this half of the story, and basically the plan will be that they don't spend too much time at this cabin. They'll be hiking through the woods. So it's one of those where I'll be kind of creating the set and adjusting the set as I work on the project itself. Um, and what I might end up doing is saving each piece. Every time I do it, every time I change the set, I might end up saving it. So I could end up with like 100 different versions of the forest when I'm done. It's the idea is basically um, for that it'll sort of be the same principle as what I've got here, where I'll lay down a ground, throw in some quick grass, plants, rocks, trees, bing bang boom, done. And then like every time I have them moving, I'll just sort of sit and cut back and forth between them, and then just change, move the trees around, move the rocks around, that sort of thing. So I kind of make it look like things are different. So it's like because of that, it won't make sense to, or at least it's not making sense to me right now to kind of create various forest scenes for them to be walking around in. Um, on the flip side, it could have the tendency of slowing this down a little bit, but at least it'll be something that I'm working on and not slowing down because I'm sitting here waiting. And I think also with this one, I think primarily because I'm not sure if I'm going to start it, if it's going to start yet, or if this other idea that I'm looking at or I'm waiting for is going to be ready to go forward when I'm finished with Sister-in-Law. I think it's kind of putting the brainstorming in a weird spot on this one, but I think getting this set up, I think I've got a great sort of funny opening. I think it has inspired sort of the introduction to the story, the setup, that sort of thing. Where it's because the cabin is so small and they're so cramped, I can see the kids fighting. They're supposed to be on vacation and the kids are fighting. Like, that's a little bit of a preview. And one thing I think one thing I had to test, I was kind of nervous on, was the sort of what I'm expecting is because this cabin is small and cramped. I was hoping that the airbed would be big enough for Jackson and Aiden to share, and then I was hoping that the couch was big enough for Allison to take. And I mean, it doesn't look it, but I think I got lucky, and it's like everything is just big enough for what I wanted. We're not almost there. Let's see, 6 minutes in. This isn't taking too long, and I think that's what gave I think that's what gave me the idea of having them fight. His, like I said, the airbed is big enough for the two of them, but just barely. So it's given me inspiration to have them fight over the space on the bed, and then Allison over in the couch trying to sleep can sit and yell at them both, and the parents have to chime in. But yeah. But anyway, I kind of wanted you to see that, give you a little sneak peek. Um, oh yeah, we're almost at the end, and this is going quickly. But on this, it's like every time I look at, well, you can't see it in this picture, but if you kind of remember, beneath the window is that blue bench with two baskets on either side of it, like this one here. It's like a part of me is trying to is trying to imagine a scenario where he falls into one of the baskets and kind of gets lost, so to speak. Am I doing scale? I don't know if that'll end up happening. I think another thing is I'd like to have you know what? I think since this window is something to look at, I'm going to make this larger. Okay, put you up there. Okay, and let's go edit, paste as new layer. I'd also, since I went through all the trouble of making the bathrooms on this set, I'd also like to do a scene involving the bathroom. And for some reason, this doesn't look right. Nope, I guess it's right. I don't know if it's just because I stare at this too long, but for some reason, it never looks like it's lined up exactly with the edge of the guide. So now we're going to have a reaction shot from him. Okay. And I don't. Oh, I do have favorite. Almost as if he knows what. Let's see if we can zoom out a little. And I think I'm probably going to have an issue with the shoulder. For some reason, it doesn't show up in the viewport, but it shows up in the render, which is odd because usually the poke through issues are the other way around. They show up on the viewport, or if they're going to show up on the render, they'll show up on the viewport as well. It's sort of the issue is his outfit is set up for the D-Force engine under simulation settings. Actually, I can do it on this one, right? Simulation settings, D-Force. Um, it's the idea is the engine will kind of take the article of clothing and drape it over the body a little more naturally, whereas most of the stuff I use is conforming is what they call conforming clothing, where sort of the only way to change the shape is through the morphs under the parameters tab. The D-Force is supposed to look a little more natural, but it's the issue is you can kind of technically use the D-Force clothing as if it was conforming, but like as you might have seen, I don't know, like if like the resolution was good enough. I get the weird poke throughs at some parts, unless I want to go simulating the cloth after each movement, sort of after each time I change his poses, his positions, his whatever. Otherwise, I've just got to work around it. So it's oftentimes I'm rendering Toby in layers in order to hide those holes. Other times, like this time, I can just kind of, if it's just 1 or 2 pixels, I can kind of cheat it. Okay, let's save this. We will pop this in here. So I know, like, I know lately, like I said, like I keep saying, if you're following the videos and watching along, I think I was talking an awful lot in probably in throughout Recall, and now suddenly in this one. um, I've been kind of using these to brainstorm or to voice some of the brainstormed ideas that have been coming to my mind for the Shrimp of the House series going forward. What are we doing? And I think so. I have to say, I'm kind of like probably more excited for the series than I've been in a year and a half, 2 years. But um, that said, I don't plan to work exclusively on it going forward. Just to kind of make that clear. It's like, I don't, like if you're following with me for the muscle growth stuff, I do intend to kind of go back and forth between sort of the micro stuff that I'm doing with Shrimp of the House and right, and with here and the short tails and the muscle growth stuff. Um, and I think, actually, let me take a look before I go finish it. So it was, I can't remember where it was in recall. Oh, whoops, his hand is in the table. Um, I was hit with an idea that I'd really like to do this year. And I have to say, like, the brainstorming on it has come to a halt because, like, Shrimp of the House is honestly taking over my thoughts. But let's see. Let's go narrow a little bit. And before I hit render and forget, no, I don't want to. Put pelvis on. Okay. Let me get this bubble up. I had this idea for a really long track. I mean, not really a huge story, but the idea is it would span across years. At sort of like about a teenager who gets signed up for a free drug trial designed to kind of make him bigger in a world where genetic engineering is becoming common and his family can't afford it, and that's in exchange for sort of joining the sports league that they run on the side. Let's see. At least I'll get home early, so we'll have the rest of the day for whatever. Oh, shoot. I forgot about the poke through on that. I can fix that in a moment. Whatever. Hmm. What do I want to have him say here? At least I'll get him on the rest of the day for whatever. Sounds like fun. I'll be on the edge of my seat until you get home. Maybe I'll come up with something better later, but it's good for now. Nah. I think it's sort of like, before I started shifting my thoughts to shrimp at the house, I did have a lot of ideas, possible ideas for it. I think ideally what it would be initially um, sort of initially it would be sort of, I don't know if I want to say a standard muscle growth story, but I'll go with that choice of words. The idea is it would sort of just be a basic standard growth, muscle growth in the beginning. His body reacts to the drug, and while he's training for whatever sport they're playing, it's like initially because he's late to the party compared to the other kids in the program. He's the smallest one there. He doesn't feel comfortable. He hates it. Blah blah blah. And it's one of those things. Like eventually he realizes that it's not as bad as he thought. He starts to like it. He gets used to it. The kids end up being nicer than they came across in the beginning. Uh, and you see him, and he gets happy. He becomes great at the sport. And it's kind of a few years pass. I'm expecting probably, at that stage he'd move. It's like we kind of move through his teens into his early 20s, and everything seems to be going great. But eventually, as he gets older, something seems missing, and it's kind of at that point. You know what? Maybe instead of pencil, we'll go with paintbrush. And let's get a darker blue. Actually, I don't think. I think that might be good. Oh, why does this thing jump like that? Okay, yeah. You're not really going to notice that looks odd unless you're really, really looking, and I'm not even sure you can zoom in. If this goes into your Kindle, I'm not sure if you can zoom in enough to see it anyway. Let's change this back to black. But it's sort of the idea is like everything seems to be going great. He's on top of the world, and then something seems missing. It's like his life suddenly feels incomplete, and he ends up spying a girl at one of their matches, meets, whatever, and it catches his eye. And it's like at that point, it kind of shifts to a bit of a romance as he's sort of pursuing this girl. But it's like one of the possibilities I'm toying with. And again, I'm not really certain, but I I'm thinking I could have like maybe one of the other guys is already seeing a girl. Maybe there's drama where she sort of initiates an affair with one of the other guys, to try and tear them apart. Where it could just be an innocent thing. On the other hand, it could be that she works for sort of an opposing organization, league, or whatever, fielding their own team, and she's basically trying to introduce drama to throw them off the game. Like I said, that's just a possibility. It'd be stuff like that. But it's like the idea is it wouldn't have a fast moving story like I usually do. It would be more like you said, the romance that plays out across a year or more. Their sports thing doesn't, or I should say, plays out over years. Be something a little different, like a coming of age story, maybe. I don't know. And in sort of the bag of ideas, one I haven't thought of in a while that's still been rattling around up there, and I've mentioned it a few times, probably a while back now. I think is one called Ant Serum. That's certainly one that will pop up eventually. So I don't really know when, but it's the idea is, and I've talked about this one ages and ages ago, but the idea would be that a sort of a gym rat, probably college age, signs up for an experimental drug trial that's supposed to produce drastic muscle growth. Scale error 34. I mean, the specifics could change. Maybe it's no. I guess it would be a muscle growth. It's the only question is coming up with a convoluted way of putting it in story. Oops. To to try and differentiate it from just from steroids, basically. You'd have to come up with an in story like, well, if they're good, what's the difference? Why? How is this different from steroids? That sort of thing. But the idea is he signs up for this trial. Let's see, invert, edit, cut. Let's see. He'll sign up for this trial, and it's like as promised. It'll He starts seeing like unreal gains in the gym, but he's always hungry. The idea is he's always hungry. He just can't seem to eat enough. And eventually he notices that he's, I want to say smaller, probably like it's, yeah, I'll go with smaller. It's like he's gaining muscle, but he's shrinking slowly and a little bit. Like it just seems to be a couple inches. But he's so in love with the muscle growth that he writes off the loss in height. It's only a couple inches. This whatever this is great. Kind of that sort of attitude. And even though the researchers want to stop the experiment, he insists on going forward. And the idea is it's kind of the idea is it would be sort of a hybrid of the macro muscle growth themes. Oh my god, did I change that? Yeah. With the thing being that he wouldn't get really, really small, just, it's like, well, the drug will make him shrink because he can't eat enough to supply the muscle growth. It's like he won't get quite this small. you know, I'm thinking maybe more like 4.5 feet when it's done, just, let's see. Just try to stay out of fast way until I do. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. And two, I'm not, and I think like, I guess because I really haven't thought about it too much beyond that, I'm not really sure whether sort of his quote unquote partner in the story, sidekick, the other person he interacts with, it's like I'm not sure it'll be a girlfriend or sort of a roommate. And I guess it depends on how I want to go with the project. If you go roommate, I mean not roommate. If I go girlfriend, then it sort of becomes romantic. The idea is like her little fire plug of a boyfriend. He kind of becomes her little fire plug of a boyfriend. He's got the big muscles, but at the same time, she can curl up on the couch and cuddle with him. That sort of thing. If you go with roommate, then you go down the path of it becoming a bromance where it's homoerotic but not sexual like that. Be sort of like along the lines of what was it, Roommates? Yeah, the short tail story Roommates. Where it's like homoerotic but they're not going that far. And I mean it could go either way because I like it's like, to me, I like sort of that non-complicated bromance um, relationship more. But on the other hand, like I do like the idea of sort of the cuddling of like the hands-on kind of stuff. So I mean, like I don't know, it could go either way. Whenever it is I get around to doing it. And another one I've mentioned, I don't know. I really don't know what to do with the concept. I don't have a story to go with it, just a premise slash concept, whatever you want to call it. And two, I'm not sure if it's a little too dark of an idea, but it's sort of another maybe slightly future storyline where the main character has a method of time travel and goes back in time to pull his teenage self out of a bad family situation and bring him to his bring him to the future time to try and avoid to try and spare him from sort of one particular event in that family situation that is going to kind of ruin him, that kind of ruined him. And I think the premise would be that would be sort of in the muscle growth idea, and it might not be sort of like he becomes a muscle giant, but more like kind of stays his size but just gets more muscular, that kind of theme. Where it's the idea is like he's kind of it's sort of I think uh, sort of in that future time, the older version of him has taken up, let's say he's taken up weightlifting to cope with whatever event damaged him in his younger days. So it's bringing his younger self to his time. He gets him involved in weightlifting is something to do together. And like the idea would be that something about being pulled through time, living out of time, sort of makes it easier for his younger self to put on muscle. And while he doesn't like grow to giant proportions like some of the stories, he it's like you kind of see those steroid like growth. Let's see, flat file export. Page 23. We're finishing up, so I'll kind of just cut this conversation there. Like I said, I don't really have a story to go with that one. So I think that's why it's never really pulled forward. Plus, I don't know. Like I said, I think the concept of him kidnapping an underage kid, even if it's himself, is probably a line I'm not sure I want to cross to begin with. Hate to leave you alone so early, but they need me on the morning shift today. At least I'll get home early, so we'll have the rest of the day for whatever. Huh? Sounds like fun. I'll be on the edge of my seat until you get home. Funny, just try to stay out of Val's way until I do. That's page 23. And despite everything I said, I'm going on to a part 4 after I do page 24. But I will see you next time, and I thank you for tuning in.